Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and as I announced in the update video a couple of weeks ago, I have a new cooperation with Shelly and I received two new devices. So this is the Shelly 1L and the Shelly 2L, which both of them are from the Gen 3 line of series from Shelly, and I'm going to review these products. So as you can see, they are very similar to like a Shelly 1 or Shelly 2, Shelly 2 PM type of products. The L in both cases means that they work without a neutral wire, and that's why I also unpacked this bypass which goes along or on the actual load, so across the lamp. And I have reviewed quite a few, non-neutral type of devices, and they use the same concept. So Shelly is no different. And this is not the first 1L device from Shelly or no neutral wire device, but they have been reintroduced in the Gen 3 series. So it has all the features and the functionality that we expect from a modern smart switch, which doesn't require a neutral line. So this is definitely an interesting product for those who try to retrofit, smart home functionality in old houses where you wouldn't have neutral wires in a switch box. So normally you will only have the live wire. So you can see that the live wire that you connect here, so that comes from your consumer unit or your switch box. And then you have a couple of outgoing wires, let's say in this case O1 and the O2, which goes to the lamp. So if you have like two different lamps, or if you just have one, then it's just an output. So then you will be able to connect those wires here, and then you connect this bypass across the lamp in the, let's say, in the ceiling rows. And this device is going to work, so you don't need to rewire the house, you don't need to bring an extra neutral wire down to the switch box. And of course these devices are small enough so they should fit in the switch box behind your switch. So you can easily keep your existing switches if they are new and like them, or maybe they are old and that's where you like them. You don't have to throw them out. This device would work with them. It would work with normal toggle type switches or push button type of switches. So no matter what you have, you should be able to make them smart. And of course the difference between these two units is that the 1L can switch one single output, and then the 2L can switch two outputs. So if you have a bigger lamp where you can switch lights, couple of lights independently, then you can use the 2L, otherwise the 1L. And with this review, I also want to take the opportunity to also say that Shelly is 7 years this year, and they are celebrating this 7-year anniversary with a 7-day special birthday celebration and discount, which is going to run for the 24th to the 30th of July. And within this period, you can have additional, discounts if you order directly from Shelly. And on top of that, there is going to be free shipping included if you purchase a certain value of products. So if you are interested in either these two products or any of the promotions for this Shelly birthday period, I'm going to leave some links in the video description below, so you can click on them and get these extra discounts. And as I said in the beginning, this is going to be a review video, so I will be reviewing these products. These products are very similar to each other. I mean, obviously the main difference is that this can support one output and this supports two outputs. So I try to focus on the 1L, and then the 2L I will review a little bit shorter because the functionality is pretty much the same. You just have twice the outputs, and the configuration, most of the configuration that you do it per output 1 and output 2, but again the functionality is going to be the same. And also because this is a Gen 3 product, there is a loads of functionality which is mostly for advanced users. And if I would talk about those, this could be multiple hours. So I just want to focus on the basics, and I hope to cover some of the additional functionality in a future videos where I dive into some specifics about the scripting or something else. And to be honest, I think for these type of devices, the non-neutral wire devices, they usually go behind switches. And for those, you're probably going to go with some of the standard, simple functionality. You don't necessarily want to use some of these advanced ones. So it's okay that we come back to that a little bit later. And before I show you how the Shelly works, let me show you this very quick setup and then go through the wiring. So I have let's say a typical installation of a light. So we have an old rocker switch, and let's assume that there is no two-way switching here. So it's a simple switch which has As you can see, it has 3 outputs, so we are using the input and one of the outputs, which is going to be switched when well, in this case, when the switch is in this position. And as you can see, it's just a normal switch. So the idea is that you would mount the Shelly behind this in the wall socket, so it's going to sit like that. And here we also have a light, and for this test I just use this very simple LED status light, like a panel light. And here we have the incoming mains. So this is the fixed live, which is coming from, let's say, a breaker, and this is the neutral line. So as you can see here, the neutral line is connected straight to the lamp, so it doesn't go into the Shelly. Into the Shelly I just have basically 4 connections wired in. So you can see that to the L connection I have the mains coming in. I probably should have shortened that so it doesn't show exposed wires. And then what goes to the lamp is connected to the output. So you see that live comes in and it goes out on the out to the lamp. And then the lamp is, through the lamp we have the neutral connection. So the neutral doesn't come into here. And you install this electronics, so probably some capacitor or something else, across the 2 terminals of the lamp. And that's going to power the Shelly. So that's the basic setup, but of course we need switches as well. And here the switch connections are also very easy because you connect the switch between the SX and the S1 terminal. And we also have an S2 terminal, but I think in most cases we were going to use a single switch. So again, just use the SX and the S1, and that's all you need to do in order to power the Shelly. And again, as a rule of thumb, if you are connecting all these wires, because we are dealing with mains electricity, make sure that they are like that, so the insulation is all the way up into the connector, and not like that what I have done here when you have some exposed wires. Because again, keep in mind that all of these is going to be stuffed behind the switch, so you shouldn't have any exposed wires that can cause either short circuit, or some wires can touch and then create some sort of circuits that are not supposed to happen. So the Shelly 1L is now hooked up to power. You can see that this indicator light that I use for testing, it's on, and I can turn it off with a button, and then it's off. And I turn it on and it's back on. And obviously this is the Shelly 1L, and that's the extra capacitor or something that we wired across the lamp in order to give power to the device where it has no live wire. So let me go through the main features in the Shelly app, and just very briefly, because I've covered Shelly before, so I use this, actually I haven't used the plus button in order to pair this device, because as soon as I powered it on, there was a notification on my phone that a new device is discovered. So I'm guessing that probably it's using the Bluetooth and some sort of discovery function that it's able to find the device anyway. But if it doesn't find, then you can use this function as well, and either add it via Bluetooth or scanning the access point that the device creates. But again, I would assume that 99% of the cases, especially if your Bluetooth is turned on, the device would get auto-discovered. And of course, in the top, once you go through the steps, it will show up in the Discover Devices tab, and you can assign it to a room, which I have done. I put it into this test room, and it's here. So 1L. So again, I'm going to go through the main features because there is a lot of stuff which I don't want to cover in a single video, because then we'll be sitting here for hours. This control is very simple. I mean, it's a 1 output device, so we have one big turn on and off button, and we can turn the device on and off. And we have some notifications here, but that's empty at the moment. Oh, of course we can rename the device here. We can put it into different rooms if we want to. And we also have an activity log, and we can create the basic, let's say, timer functions, but I wouldn't call these timer functions. These are like permanent features, so you can configure this device to auto on or auto off. So for example, if you are installing this in a let's say in a pantry or a place where you want the device to automatically turn off, you can just enable this and set the amount of hours or minutes you want the device to turn off. And once you turn the lights on, it will automatically turn off. So these are great features. The others probably you will not use for a light, but again, as a general feature, it could be useful. And then we come to the general schedules. So these are the schedules that you can do, like I want to create a schedule where every single day of the week at a specific time or at sunrise on sunset, let's say sunrise, before or after sunrise or sunset, I want the device, well, I can call up locations. I want output control. So I want output control. I want the device to turn on, and I can start listing the devices. So it's automatically added this the output of this device. I mean, it only has one output, so this is why it says output 0, but I can add other actions as well if I want to. And I can review what I want, and I create an action. So on sunrise, it's going to turn on. And of course, you can create many of these different schedules. So this is how you can automatically turn let's say if it would be a garden light, then you can turn it on. Okay, and the next option is the actions. So I think in the past, these were called the webhooks. So you can create actions based on whether the output is turned on or off, or the input is, let's say, turned on and off. Then you can create, you can call up some URL. So if you want to control other Shelly devices directly or other non-Shelly devices directly, that can be controlled using a simple HTTP action or REST API. You can do those here, but I think we can do the actions in the app, so that's probably going to be easier. Scripts is a whole another rabbit hole. It does a lot of things. You can do a lot of stuff. I don't want to go into that because we can spend hours on scripts, but these are like sort of like really small simple codes that actually run on the Shelly and can do certain things, communicate, or do certain actions. And the next one is the virtual components. That's something new. I haven't had a Shelly device which does virtual components. I definitely want to play around with this, but again, this seems to be like a more complicated and a more advanced topic, not for the the typical use as especially this device is designed to do, because since it doesn't have a neutral wire, it's most probably going to be used in light switches, and probably for that the virtual components is not that relevant. And then the rest of it is going to be settings. So this is where we can do create the various Wi-Fi settings and communication standards. So obviously cloud is now enabled, so I can view this device even if I'm not at home. I'm on mobile data, and I can enable the Bluetooth if I want to, but I mean, I primarily want to communicate with it using Wi-Fi anyway, so I don't want to. And also, if you want to use it via MQTT, you can do it here as well. So you can create the MQTT settings. And some of the new features is you can add a device note, and you also have a view of how this device is used in various dashboards, groups, scenes, alarms, and thermostats. So we just set it up. It doesn't exist in any of them, so it doesn't show it here. You can do offline notification, device customization card. I will come back to this in a separate video as well. Appliance type, again, just for the energy monitoring and reporting purposes, you can assign to a different to a specific appliance. You can also add a pin lock if you want this device to be only controllable if you enter a pin lock. And and you can exclude from activity log if you want to, but that's it. And then you can share the device with other users. And in the settings, I mean, the only thing I really want to look at is the input output settings. So this is where you configure what type of button that you connect it to it. I mean, I connected to a normal rocker switch, so this is a switch type, but if you happen to have a push button, then you can set it to like a push button. And then you can also set what the relay output is going to be. And of course, the default is the toggle, so obviously when you switch the switch, then it changes the output. If you push the button, it would change the output. And you can also create a detached option. So then the output, so the lamp and the switch is going to be completely independent from each other. So changing the switch will not necessarily switch the output. And we also have a default status. So when this unit gets powered on, what would be the input status of, the initial status of the output. So for example, if there is a power outage and the power comes back, do you want the lights to turn on, turn off, or want to go back to the previous state? And probably the last thing that I want to show is, which I'm going to come back to a little bit later, is under device information. You can see what the local IP of this device is, because I also want to show you the local website that this device creates. So if you want to do administering over that as opposed to the phone application, you can always do that. But now I want to go back and also look at the scenes, because this is how you would normally create some sort of automation between different Shelly devices. So you go to the scenes tab and you can create a plus button and in a condition. So it can be anything, you know, device based. So if you do device based, then we select next, the test room and the L3, then we can create a scene which responds to when the output is changed or when the input is changed. So it really depends on the scenario. I think in most cases you would set up the output based. So if I turn on the lamp, I want something else to happen. Maybe I want to, maybe I want to turn on another Shelly because that turns on another light in the room, or you know, something similar. So you can use the output state. So let's say it is turned on, you turn on another Shelly. If it's turned off, you turn off another Shelly. So that's one of the things that you can create. But you can also obviously create a different start condition, which could be, you know, maybe time-based, but we have the schedules for that. So most probably it will be, you know, another device-based. So let's say if my +1 is turned on, then I want this scene to trigger. And I can add additional conditions as well. And you can see there are a few which are based on the premium model. And then if I put next, I can also create the second half of a scene, which what should happen if this device, for example, in my case, the +1 gets turned on. So for example, I can, you know, the notification, group actions, scenes, and, or I can, let's say, trigger my Gen3. So turn on the device. So this is how you would link two devices together. So if you turn on one of the Shelly, it automatically turns on the other one. So if, let's say, you have multiple lights in a room, or if one light is turned off, you turn on, you always want this other light to be turned off. And yeah, you can do delays as well, and then basically save it, and then you specify when to execute this and enable it, and you know, set it as a global, and you can, or you can put it on a room, and finally you can add a name to it. Test scene. Okay, and my test scene is here. So this is how you create a simple link between the two devices, and that's why I want to say that you can use the app to create these simple scenes by going through these wizards, as opposed to that actions that you could configure on the device itself. And as I said, I want to show you how the web interface looks like. So if you remember a couple of minutes ago, we looked at the IP and the app. So that was 192.168.1.131 in my case. So if you just put it into a browser, then you would get this user interface. And again, if you are an old fart like me, then you might like to configure things on a bigger screen as opposed to like a phone screen, which I also like to do. But you can do all the things that in the app, you can do it here. So you see that you can also control the device. That's the big output. You can access to the actions. You can create the schedules. You have the settings here. So it is laid out in a slightly different way. And I think probably there are a couple of other things here that may not be in the app. Definitely there is, like, you know, some features about the debug, you know, enabling debugging, and I don't remember the TLS configuration being in the app. So definitely if you want to access to the advanced features, or, you know, really configure it, I would say I would recommend you to come here. Also, there is a whole new, you know, screen for scripting. Again, if you want to do some scripting, probably it's going to be easier on a laptop and a keyboard as opposed to the phone. And the whole components thing, that was those screens were a little bit simplified in the app, but you have the full access to that here. Not to mention that the Matter functionality, enabling it is here. KNX functionality is only available here, and there are a couple of other things in the under the advanced as well. which you won't be able to access on the main user interface. But again, in this video, I just wanted to cover the basics, and so the things that you would find here in addition to the app is definitely not the basics. So if you want just to get up and running, configure the light, make sure that you can control it from the phone, then the phone app is completely adequate for these purposes. Just like with the other one, before we go into the app, let me show you the wiring, the way I have set up what you can see here. So again, the concept is going to be very similar. I just use this plug for testing. So I have the neutral and the live connection. So that's the live, which will be coming from your switch box or consumer unit, distribution panel, whatever, and that's the neutral. So the live goes into the L terminal, which is this one. So you can also see that it shows live. And then you have, again, the two of the outputs. So similarly to the R1, we have an output 1, so O1 here, and then there is an O2. So that goes to the two lamps. So those are the other live wires, so the switch live wires, which go, so the two brown ones in my case, so they go to the lamp. And then the neutral, again, that only goes to the lamp. It doesn't go into the Shelly. So you can see no blue wires going into the Shelly. And if you look at this diagram, and actually I probably should have, I have the diagram for the documentation as well. I mean, now you can see how the live is connected to L, the O1 and the O2 goes to the lamp, and the other side of the lamp, that's what is connected to the neutral. So this document and also the stencil here on the Shelly shows that you connect the bypass to the lamp, which is connected to the O1. And I didn't think that makes a difference, but actually I accidentally wired this the other way around for the first time, and it wasn't working. So it looks like that it actually matters that the bypass is connected over the lamp, which is connected to O1. So if you experience that you set it up and it doesn't work, maybe because you swap the lines around or the bypass around. So make sure that you pay attention to that. And then connecting to the switch, which I use the yellow wires, it's again very easy. So you connect the one side of the switch to SX, and then the two is S1 and the S2. And I mean, the switch would differ for every single manufacturer, but you can see that I have the L, which is connected to the SX. And then I have this two switched output, L1 and L2, and those are connected to the S1 and the S2 terminals. Again, if you want to pause, I just bring this a little bit closer so you can see all the various connections. But again, the documentation is really helpful in understanding how you need to connect this all up. And that's it. So again, normally on the switch box, if you have two separate lights, then you only have 3 wires. So there is one, the fixed light, which is coming from your consumer box, and the 2 switched outputs, which goes into the lamps. So those are connected to L, O1 and O2. And then the switch is connected like that I explained before. So actually it is really easy. I guess the trick here with the 2L is that it looks like it does matter that this bypass is across the lamp, which is connected to O1. Oh, and the wire came out, so I should not connect it like this. Make sure that your connections are proper, not like mine. So I don't really like to show you, bad examples, but I just managed to, show you one. So that's the wiring. And this is how the 2L looks like in the Shelly app. Because it has 2 outputs, every time that you have a device which has either multiple inputs or outputs, it gets broken out into individual, let's say, items in the list. So you can see that I have the Gen1 here, and I can switch it on, and then the output comes on. And if I do the other one, the second output comes on. And of course, I can do the switching using the switch as well. Oh, I had the switch turned off already. And then and now I can turn it off using the switch. And again, this is a behavior that goes into the input settings that I already mentioned for the 1L. So I'm just going to go back to this once we go into the settings. But to be honest, you will see that the rest of the interface is very, very similar, and the settings that you are going to see is very similar to the 1L, and it actually duplicated for both of the outputs. So I don't want to spend an extra amount of time doing this, but as you can see, you have the main controls here. You can have notifications, and then the logs, oops, and then you have the auto off auto on function, the schedules, the webhooks, scripts, and the virtual components, and also the settings. And if I go into the these settings, the last one, then input output settings, then this is the toggle setting. If what I mentioned also previously, that it remembers which position the switch is on, and this is why when I was switching it over, then it didn't do anything, because it was again looking at how the position looks like. But if I switch it to edge and I save, now what we can see that it changes the so I switched the outputs on by having the switch in this position, and if I switch it off in the app and I do that, of course it doesn't work, because I already made the change for one of them. So I was looking a little bit stupid, didn't understand what's going on. So now you can actually see the behavior. So in one of the settings, the switch remembers which position is on, and then it would do like that. But on the other setting, on the other output, no matter what position the switch is, if you toggle it, then it changes the output as well. Again, I said it's really up to your preference whether you like the first working mode or the second working mode. It doesn't, well, I mean, of course, you can mix up the physical state with the physical state of the input with the physical state of the output if you use the app as well. But that's just the nature of the beast, and I think this is why in the smart home settings, it is, in some cases, it's more preferred to use the buttons, the momentary buttons, as opposed to the switches. But again, if you have some really nice switches and you don't want to change them, then, well, you don't have to. And you can choose which mode of operation is more suited to your liking or preference. And as I said, I can do the same on the other one. And this is why it is behaving differently, because here, that has it is on the toggle state and not on the edge state as the other. So again, these two outputs work completely independently. You can configure them completely independently. So they are basically just two 1Ls in a single package. And the same statement applies to the scenes. So whatever I have shown you for the 1L applies to the 2L, but you can do it twice, because you can configure that separately for output 1 or an output 2, or output 0 and output 1. And since I was talking so much about the web interface, just want to show you the web interface as well. So here, I mean, it is slightly different from the previous one, because you can see both of the outputs in one single screen, but then the settings is grouped into into one menu. But then let's say if you go into the schedules, then you can set up the schedules, and in the schedules you can still say that this schedule is let's say is going to operate either output 1 or output 2, or output 0 and output 1. So you can still configure everything independently for output 1 and output 0, or output 0 and output 1. And this concludes my review of the Shelly 1L and the 2L. If you are interested in these products, there is going to be affiliated links in the video description. Also, I will try to throw in any information that I have around the birthday celebration and the birthday period. So if there are like special codes and links, then you will find them in the video description. Hopefully there will be a lot more Shelly content coming up in the future, so stay tuned if you are interested in this ecosystem. And of course, if you have some questions, just ask me in the comments below and I might try to answer them. And also if they are like sort of like a longer solution type of question, then we might just either cover them in a future video. But I think that's all going to be for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one.